Hello, my name is Dara O'Briain. I am a comedian, occasional science writer, and general bon vivant. And I also I keep a good set of shelves, which I have been complimented on for my 6 months of Zoom conversations.
You actually do. I was remarking on them. There's kind of
There's a lot going on there, isn't there?
there is.
Honestly, I could just turn 90 degrees and there'd just be a bare wall, but no, what would be the point of that? The image I always had of shelves would be that opening, that tracking shot at the start of a movie where there's like somebody's office and you see shots of them with a giant fish and the president. Like that kind of that was always thought like, sure, that's clearly a life well spent if you've just gathered shots of you standing next to, Buzz Aldrin or something. So there's a picture of me and Buzz Aldrin over there. Like, so, yeah, it's a thing that and also it's kind of, I keep meaning to, and I'll do this next time I'm doing like the late, to put clues to a puzzle behind me, like to, fake book spines that indicate where the next murder victim is. And I'll put them behind me as a kind of a game.
The usual suspects type of
Totally, but or what was it? That fantastic Clue, wasn't it, with Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine, like whatever. This house filled with toys and things like that. Yeah, yeah. I like. By the way, this is an office which is essentially a dumping room. If I turned it around, it is just boxes and there's a lot of hangers over there, and there's just so this is the only small window in this thing that looks. Oh yeah, that must be an accomplished person in this room.
Well, before you shatter all the illusions, let's have a chat. Come here to me. The way I kind of start most of these is by asking people, you growing up as a kid, were you looking back now? Were you destined for, a life on stage or a life in the media or a life?
Yeah, totally not. And I think anyone who knew me as a child, for example, yourself, would probably remember. I think I was kind of quiet. I think I was sort of fairly, studious or with shy as a kid, and that was sort of carried on through adolescence. And it was really only when I got into university that, along with my general confidence, kind of building a bit, that I discovered debating in university and stood in front of a crowd and told a joke. And it was some stupid joke about how the law faculty had been moved from one building to another the previous summer, and this was in second year college, so I knew the ground a little bit more. And I said, and thank you to all the law students who've travelled so far to be with us today. And I got a massive round of applause, and it was like somebody had accidentally injected me with heroin or something like that. Like I was a totally unexpected high appeared, and I was like, Jesus, that was fun. And then threw in a few more, like whatever, and got into it. And it was totally unexpected. It was certainly not. I mean, there's no one, I think, in Bray in the 1970s and 80s would have gone, that's kid showbiz. That guy is going to be the one who, particularly because I remember as a child being slightly out of sorts in where I grew up, partly because I didn't go to school. I'm from Bray, like yourself, but I didn't go to school in Bray. I went to school in an Irish language school a bit outside the town. So there was always, even during more social years where I would go out in Bray, it was always kind of felt like I was a visitor to the town or something like that. Like whatever, when I was playing I remember vividly when I was playing under 16 football for the GA team, Bray was there. There's a kick around beforehand, and I felt foppish. I felt like the most middle class child moving through, because it was a rough town. Like it was a tough place. But I kind of always felt slightly outsidery about the whole thing, and as well as just shy because I was 15. But so none of that, no universe would that have been like. And it was. I think there are people who, in the first few years from my school, who might have accidentally been at a gig and gone, what are you doing here? This is insane. Like and so it came from nowhere. People knew me in college, only knew me as that, and it was kind of weird to go, no, that was totally not a thing. It's a weird thing because there isn't a type of comic, there isn't a type of person. It's this other thing that gets grafted onto you, put onto you. It's like, the ability to, or the need, the fleshy earlobe, or the ability to roll your tongue. It's a genetic anomaly that just randomly affects people in the population. Like it's a syndrome. It needs a name. It's a disease, but it just drops randomly on people. And you kind of go, well, where did that come from? So we're really weird kind of cross section of the population, generally comics, and it does mean that whenever you meet someone who does it. And I'm not sure how the rest of the arts are about this, because we tend to like each other and like the fact that you do this. That's enough of an introduction. If you go, you're a comic, if you've done it once, if you have stood in front of a group of strangers wanting them to laugh, you have that bug, you have the gene, you have the, that mutation. Like, I mean, and in a bad way. So therefore we have a kind of a sense of automatic fellow feeling at any level in any country. If you meet somebody who goes, well, actually, I've done a couple of gigs. Boom, you're grand. You're in the family of these things. So, but no, it was a totally late discovery. Never destined.
But two things there that kind of have remained, by those things important to you is the Irish language, and also Gaelic. I mean, you play Gaelic, you played for Wicklow Miners?
I got in the football. I got a kind of trial. I was a big lad. I was kind of athletic. I got a trial, but it's all politics, I got to the final run out, and they'd already decided who was going to be my position. I went for one of the Hollywood positions. I was number 14 full forward, and it was like there's a guy from Arklow. And it's not like I'm still holding the grudge or anything. And in hurling, I played for a while because my school was quite good. And I don't think I was particularly the most gifted, but I was on the team as a mainstay of the team. And then got into for the county. I had the absolute. It's almost there is sometimes when one of the joys of being a comic is you look for stories, and sometimes the things just work out perfectly. Somebody says the right thing and you go, oh, that story is going to maintain me forever. I have the perfect lowest possible intercounty career. You couldn't have less of but yet also definitely have one, where I played 30 minutes and the first half of a league match, not even championship, league match against Meath and Wicklow for Meath in hurling. It couldn't be as low a level as you could possibly get for the least amount of time possible. But it's like people who have won a cap. It's like astronauts who just tip into space and go, no, I'm an astronaut. It's just enough to get me into the club of people who've played some form of intercounty. Yeah. So, but it is. I told the story once on Up for the Match, which is a bizarre thing I find impossible to explain to people over here that such a program exists. But I did one Up for the Match because they give you tickets to the final. So I went on Up for the Match and I told this story, and I have been living the people going, oh, Wicklow hurling, for 15 years since then.
So it's you and Katie Taylor in Bray, kind of sports.
Look, there's an ongoing league, and Katie Taylor is very difficult to shift from number one. And then Darren Randolph, he's got a couple of good games. Darren pops up there, whatever. Laura Whitmore is doing very, very well at the moment, doing great stuff at the moment. And then Hosier came from Greystones, and he shifted in. So I've had my moments up near the top of that league, but I think, I think I'm very much, it's like Michael Jordan. I've had my time there, and now Katie is very much the number one in Bray. So,
so when you discovered that in college, when you discovered that you kind of liked how that felt.
Yes,
Obviously, you moved into kind of doing debating, and you kind of, in your, as part of your kind of degree, you're part of the, a big part of the LMH over the years.
Yeah.
But there must have been a transition for you to kind of go, okay, yeah, this is really cool. This is my, I found my niche.
Well, there was an element of, because I went in there to study science, maths and physics and stuff like that, and actually had a fairly solid first year, some good results because I wasn't doing any of the extracurricular stuff. And then second year came along and it just, and because I totally suddenly, I think I also broke up with my school girlfriend, and then that's the final snip of stuff, and then you're just, then you're just running wild. And so it was me just running around the campus, and suddenly the world would open up to me, and it was fun, and there was things happening, and there was various meetings I had after a terrible set of results in second year. That's like a literally drastic set of results, and a lecturer went, look, you got out of your system. That's the main thing. You had that year where you did everything. Sure, now it's next year the finals. So, and I went, yeah, and totally burnt it up again the next year. Absolutely, because it was just like I've been quite. I did a thing. I went back to UCD to do a thing recently, and it was conversation, and I coined a line which I want to find a home in a show somewhere, where I said, I entered UCD with a bright academic career behind me. And it was very much the case that a couple of promising results in first year, and then it was like, I'm a cautionary tale, really, more than anything else. The intriguing thing for me, though, is, and I was considering this the other day, I did my finals, made an absolute haint of them. Absolute haint of them. And the results were really poor. And then I went, but I'd done all these things and was running all these things around for an election and all this nonsense, right? So I went into the department and I said, look, I've made a mess of this. Like, is there any chance I could do this again? I did all this extracurricular stuff, and there were two departments. One department head said, no, you absolutely can't do that. That's your own fault. And the other one was, yeah, you know what? I'll give you another go. And he let me back in again. And he wrote a letter that said, due to extenuating personal circumstances. And once he's written that, you never then have to explain what he accepted that I had extenuated. And then it went up. I could track this letter going up to all the levels, because I had to get a confirmation of this going all the way up to the president's office, who has to let you in, who has to basically cancel your finals results. So if ever there's a slice of luck I had, is a man called Sean Deneen in the maths department in UCD went, yeah, look, man, you were doing anything. Look, we'll give you one more go on this. And small department, they allowed me to do it, and I went back in again. And the benefits of that were I actually did learn a bit about the subject. I would have left with no knowledge. I would have left with a certain kind of towards any kind of academic stuff, whereas I went back and actually learned the thing. So I was able to then go and do sciencey stuff later on in life. I had an appreciation for it. I also then stayed in university, won loads of debating, and ran a newspaper, and just did loads of other things, and ended up staying 2 years in UCD, just doing around stuff, and then ran all these things and did all these things. Many of the best things that led to what I do were from the years I got because they gave me a second chance. But probably the most important was I left with actually understanding some stuff about the thing I went to study. And that has maintained me through any of the science stuff I did. Yeah. I would have absolutely not felt I had any right to be there, bar the fact that I had a second go, and I actually spent a summer literally sitting in a garden in Bray. There's a shed at the bottom of our garden where I moved all the stuff, and I used to study at night. And I sit in the garden, and there was a point middle of July or something like that, because I would study all these exams were in autumn for just the timetable of them. And I had a moment where I got it. I actually got this thing, relativity was, and I got it. And I remember that being a big moment. And also then that meant when I met Brian Cox or everything, at least I had some basis on which to. So a lot of the richer stuff for my life came from being given that second chance, and because I blew it. Yeah.
Kind of those sliding doors. I mean, anyone that I've had these conversations with, and anyone like you have a conversation with, and it's something you kind of find hard to say to young people, because there are those moments in your life the whole time that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would have come out of there just a little bit cold on the whole university experience thing. I would have met some friends and had some fun and done some things, and then been spat out really fast because I would have just misjudged it. And I probably wouldn't be as, into the just public understanding of things and all that other stuff that I've been able to do, like whatever. I think I might have carried a chip. I probably would have done media or comedy or something like that, but it might have been a slightly colder, slightly more cynical me because of it. So, I appreciate that.
Come here, and then I suppose you kind of flipped over, but I mean, during those times, you won national debating awards in Irish and English, didn't you? Didn't you?
Yeah, there was a year where we won it in there was me and one guy, two people on the team. It was a different team each time. But the Irish Times used to do the Irish Times debating tournament, and then they did things called the Irish Times Grade In. And so there's 3 people I think who've held both of them at the same time, and who history cannot record who the others are.
And also set up a newspaper as well.
Set up a newspaper, yeah. Look, this all happened in these ghost years. You're right, in the alternate universe that I might not have lived in. Yeah, and the universe that paper still goes. I'm doing one of these with them in a couple of days. I check in with them sort of semi-regularly. It's me and a guy called Pat Lee, who's like the political correspondent for the Irish Times now, and so we set up this newspaper. There was a paper there, and we just said, look, this has to be changed and modernized and all that. And we turned it into something completely different. Yeah. And it started getting picked up. The stories were picked up at the Nationals, and we were free to dedicate our entire year to doing this thing. And we got 12 papers out a year, which is unheard of at the time, and 11 of our head stories were picked up by the Nationals, and it was put on a proper footing. And they've since gone and turned it into it's fantastic. Student media is ridiculously good now, but obviously I'm taking all credit for that. But there was also something quite beautiful about those. It's a weird little miracle, like, and of you send people out. And you go, look, we need this, 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 and this, and then you sit and you wait. And this is presumably what happens in normal newspapers. You go, right, well, there's a paper potentially happening somewhere because people are writing it, and then the stuff comes in, and then you go, oh, okay, and then we used to stay up all night just typesetting and laying it all out. It was on Quark or something on a computer, but it wasn't like ink under the fingers. It wasn't the 1890s that was doing it in, but but it was still. You'd wait, you'd sit there, and then you'd wait, and then it all came back, and okay, great, now we've got a newspaper, like, and that happened 12 times in a row. It was a lovely thing. But there's a guy who writes for the Irish Independent who I call No Byline Dave, because we kept forgetting to put his byline on his articles, so he couldn't send them in for people. He's like one of the Irish Independent senior sports writers, and so there's a generation of people in print who I worked with, and yeah.
But I mean, you mentioned earlier on about Bray. I think as you emerge from kind of college, at that time and head into different things, it was a very different Ireland that we both grew up in. I mean, like, it was the 80s to mid, and then it headed into college in the kind of mid to late 80s. Like, there were dark days. It wasn't anywhere like the world is now, and with the opportunities weren't as fluid, or like certainly relations between the two islands weren't.
Oh Christ, no! Yeah. I mean, look, the weirdest benchmark for me was you felt you had to go to university if you're going to get any job at all in Ireland. There was just that tangible sense of, like, you've got to emigrate, or there's nothing here. So you had to go, and everyone had to go to third level education of some sort. It was just like a bare minimum, just to try to compete. That was the impression you had in that kind of school thing you have, where everything is measured in terms of what can I put on a CV. As it turns out, I've literally never had to submit a CV for anything ever in my life. Throughout hours of learning how to format them onto one sheet. But in that way, that you still have the mentality of life can be broken down to those leaflets, that stack of leaflets in the career guidance office in school, where there's 80 different jobs, and they all can be summed up in whatever a leaflet has. But the impression I had leaving school in Ireland in 1990s, when I did the Leaving Cert, was you have to go to college, because you have to have something. You have to have a thing to say, look, otherwise you're not even going to get any chance at any job ever, or you go. Or you leave, and then if you leave on a boat, and you leave for a long time. So it was very different vibe, and it was strange when different generations obviously react to that in different ways. When that got eased, and there was a time where suddenly the take up of technical jobs, technical degrees went down in Ireland, because jobs were easier to get, and people were going, well, I don't want to do 4 years of engineering or maths or something now, because I know I can get work, like whatever. So it's weird the way these things track themselves out within the population. But yeah, it was a very different thing. Like, also, without making a thing, gay rights, abortion, all that stuff was way behind where we are now. The divorce referendum was probably the really important moment in that, because it was held on a Friday in 1995, and everyone went home to wherever they were from, and then reassembled back in Dublin on the Saturday, having gone back to vote. And I mean, it wasn't easy for people to come back from other countries, but everyone went back to our flat. Was somebody went to Tipperary, somebody went to Donegal, I went back to Bray, and somebody else was in Dublin, and then we gathered again on the Saturday to watch the results come in, and it felt like that generation grabbing the reins of the country for a second. Because it was special, because the results all came out in a seesaw of no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, all the way down to Dublin South Central, I think was the last one to be declared. And so we're in a pub at 9 o'clock on Saturday evening when that one came through, and the 3,000 votes that tipped it over were from there. And the place erupted, and it was a hell of a night. It was a hell of a night, because we knew no matter what happened, we could get divorced. And it was bizarre, because I'd been in university for those debates, and I'd literally have seen the event. It was a summer after I'd left college, so I had hosted debates on it, and you'd have people come in to discuss it and debate it, and Nell McCafferty coming in, these kind of things, people coming in to argue this stuff out. And so it was it just felt like, yeah, this is a step. Whenever the two most recent referendums, the abortion and marriage equality, came through, and the church was there going, oh, we seem to have, and you're going, no, you're 20 years behind the point where you've gone. gone. It was gone 95, like and you didn't notice that.
Yeah.
So it was interesting that.
That's okay. So then you're kind of have, you know, your qualification. You've done the academic. You're kind of debating. You know, champion. You're into that. Comedy. So like, I mean, because you kind of RTE kind of happened quite soon after, didn't it? I mean,
yeah. Look, there was a point where I did like RTE being like Echo Island and these things. The forgotten, never spoken of part of my life. It's a strange thing to have on the CV. Also because I was already doing gigs at the time and looking for work. And I was bobbing and weaving and shifting and moving, trying to get anything I could, like and the only kind of gig available to a 23-year-old is kids TV at that stage. And it was apparently it popped up on the bar on the big telly in UCD apparently one day, and like people who, because I've been swanking around UCD like a king of the place, look at me, yeah, I do this, and I'm one of the big guys on campus, and that translates into me on Echo Island 3 months later. So it was a massive dent to whatever cool I'd built up. But it was, you know, you're just trying to get any gig at all. And so I was writing bits of articles for places and ringing up and going, can I give you something on this? And bits of gigs. I mean, it was that circuit had just started. Literally, there was a day in the Comedy Cellar in the summer of 95, the blessed summer of 95 that I will lyricize about, but where I did my first ever gig in the Comedy Cellar, and also doing their first ever gig was Jason Byrne on the same night. And then Andrew Maxwell was over because he was in London, and we were like, oh my God, there's Andrew Maxwell. And there was a moment, and I'm reminded Andrew this, where Andrew bounds down the stairs after closing the show, and me and Jason were nervously standing around going, oh, hello, Andrew. And Andrew went, you're okay, you're all right. And then there's a third guy who went, you're not so good. And Andrew ran off, like, and we went, okay, the guy who went to London has get paid as a compliment. Yeah. So it was that first summer where where that whole circuit all seemed to start in 1995. Tommy broke through that year. Colin was coming down from Belfast. Ed was over in London, so he was again a mythic thing, and so there was just this emergence of a generation. There were obviously the Mr. Trellis guys, Barry Murphy and all those, but there was a circuit of people, and it was this really mad, weird kind of good acts and terrible acts, and they were all under the same thing, and we all knew each other really well, and we all hung out, and every Thursday night from whatever the clubs were, we would gather in the Norseman pub to say, how was your show? And you could fit the entire Irish comedy circuit into this small area, this one pub, every Thursday night, like whatever. And it was a sort of a privilege. Deirdre O'Kane started again same time, 95 and 6, all starting at that time and all being rubbish together because it is one of the things that's just it's a beautiful thing to be in a kind of a group of you coming through at the same time, where you're kind of making the same mistakes and having the same terrible gigs, and it's quite a bond that you all have. So we were very lucky to have that, and what the knock-on effect is that Kilkenny started around there, and since then you go back to Kilkenny for the Cat Laughs. It's when we all kind of touch base with each other and we see what they're doing. Like I see what Dave is doing or Tommy's doing, whatever, and you go, oh, that's very good. And then you kind of, it keeps you honest, like, because it's like I've got to keep tracking with these guys. And so it's been a really nice thing to pass through with this group. And so it's I think a different thing. It was one of the reasons that it was kind of so disappointing and galling to find out the kind of stuff that's been going on in terms of sexual harassment or abuse, whatever, for the current generation, because you're going, man, you're taking away one of the sweetest times of when you're just starting off. It should be a cocoon. It should be a supportive thing where people can try nonsense, because there's only 60 people in the room, like whatever, and you can, maybe you're not, maybe you're a funny poet, maybe you're a character actor, maybe you're this, maybe you're physical. Yeah. Who knows? And you should be able to try all that nonsense and also then have a pint afterwards with people who are like doing the same thing as you. And I think it just got to a point where there was inequalities that weren't there when we were there. And so it's always hugely disappointing. But it remains this golden 95 is golden summer. I had a notepad where I'd written down, I got £40 for this and £30 for that. Yay, I've made rent. So what'll I do next week?
But also, I mean, before we move on, I think there's also the circuit kind of wasn't, there was the gigs were all over the country. So like the comedy circuit in Ireland didn't exist in any way the way it existed for the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
So
The weird.
I can imagine you played some interesting places around.
Oh look, there was a corner of a tennis club. There were some people try gigs in different places. There was a corner of a tennis club in, I think, Raheny or something. That didn't work. There was a Milano's, which then you come to in England find out, Pizza Express is the. Why did we ever get away with calling it Milano's? Ran comedy nights on their one on Dawson Street. Dawson Street. Just in a room, and it wasn't like you just be people you having a meal and suddenly dunk dunk dunk. Hello, here's my only 20 minutes. Dublin Airport stuck people in the bar. So people would be having a pint with their family or whatever. And again, somebody would, here's the interference and a microphone be popped up and said, all right, we're going to do some comedy now. And awful. There's a guy who's now a journalist over here, who he did a gig. I won't say his name, but he did this long routine about swallowing a condom filled with cocaine, which he did in the bar of Dublin Airport. And there were families there just, I'm here with me. I'm just trying to kill time because our flight's been delayed. Why is this being put on for us like that? And so it was dreadful spots that it had no right in being in. The weird thing is people, sometimes when you get to this level of people go, oh, why are comedians always on lots of things? Because you train just by putting us in the weirdest places and got us to do our work. It's an astonishing training as a comedian, just for trying to make this work in places where it has no earthly reasons. We're extremophiles. We're those kind of bacteria that live in sulfuric vents at the bottom of the ocean, where you find us in the Antarctic. We're like cockroaches after the Holocaust, nuclear Holocaust. It is you will always at some point when man is scrabbling for life, the only sound you hear is dunk dunk. We will make it work somehow, somewhere.
Kabir, I mean, also as well, and it kind of attracts your kind of development into media as well, because at that stage comedians I started to break into television and panel shows started to happen. Do you know what I mean? And kind of always a thing in the UK, but not so much here. And I think then you on Don't Feed the Gondolas, and kind of that became a whole thing in itself. That became an event telly, and again
it was weird, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, and gondolas, I not necessarily expunge it, but I think I was very raw when I was doing it. I've been doing it for 2 or 3 years at that stage. I mean, we would on mock, for example, you'd need to be a little bit longer doing it than we were doing when we got thrown into gondolas. And also there's no structure, there's no big, huge writing team. It was like Sean and a couple of guys banging shit down, and making funny phone calls, and none of the resources of the shows that we were in a certain sense competing with in Britain. Where you had teams of writers sending in tons of jokes, whatever, and it was how it's done. It's gone. It was suddenly popped up as a thing, whatever. There was an awkward bit where I'm on gondolas at night and Echo Island in the afternoon, and that had to be addressed, and one had to go. But it was. They're a strange thing, panel show, anyway, because they can work and they can be a glorious thing and they can be a thing, or they can, if you don't like them, they can look just the most clunky thing in the world, and they can look like, oh, there's nothing going on here, whatever. But the whole point is, it's very difficult to get stand-ups, onto in many ways. This is weirdly the chosen method in this part of the world, whereby you get people who don't want to burn their only good bit of material, and you put them into a situation where we can be reacting and stuff and maybe that'll work. Weird knock-on effects of that is, for a long time people thought I was from Cork, because Brendan O'Connor is very much from Cork. So people thought I was from Cork for a long time. People would say, who's in the house? Jesus in the house to me, because that was Brendan's thing. And so it was a strange kind of, I don't look back at it it's bad, it was fine, it happened, but I remember being a bit of a panic to get the thing. We were very, very new. Yeah. When I came back a couple of years ago, years after that, to do the panel, it felt like a much more calm expression of how you do this. Whereas that was frantic, I think. Gondolas. Great nights out, wonderful nights out, but frantic.
But I think the panel, yeah, I mean, as I said, the kind of trajectory of kind of certainly, your career on TV here, and as your gig, I mean, it's funny, you look kind of back at, the gondolas and then you into the panel. And it's two very, not very different people, but you can see polish starting to emerge in both yourself
definitely.
And what's going. And did you notice that yourself, Dara? Did you kind of go, oh, okay, there's something happening here to me that kind of.
Well, I left Gondolas because I wanted to go and do Melbourne Comedy Festival and Adelaide. I wanted to do that. So I'd reached that point where I'd done a couple of Edinburghs and was beginning to get onto it. There's a point in a lot of comics' lives where you get a lot of these festivals. And so you just got to go with it. You got to just pack the bag and away you go. And that's you on the road for 6 months of the year, doing Adelaide for a month and then Melbourne. And then you come back to Kilkenny, and then you write your new show for Edinburgh, and then there's a point at the end of the Edinburgh thing where you're going. I remember being at a party going, Jesus, I've been drinking with these people for 6 months, the same generation, me, Ross Noble, who the same particular group of people had passed through Deirdre Kane, had gone through all of these festivals, and you'd see them for that, and then you kind of, you move to a different phase of your life. But I really wanted to do that at that point, so I left in order to go and do that stuff. And my spaceship took and I disappeared off up the screen, and gondolas went on without me for a couple of years. And then moved to London and was doing stuff. And I think I was in London a couple of years. But in Australia, when I was in Australia, I did the panels. And it was an Australian show originally. And I remember thinking, this is very easy. There's no other kind of tension of games or rounds, whatever. This would actually work very well in Ireland, because the games and rounds things feels like a very British thing. It feels like a very British construction. And like I've been posting games and points and rounds for 15 years now on the BBC. And I do a warm-up for the audience where I go, lads, it's all just a MacGuffin. It's a plot device, and the plan at least seemed to be mature enough. And that was mature and confident enough to go, we don't need this, right? And there's a surprising amount, particularly in Ireland, where you have to just exude a certain level of authority and confidence, because otherwise an Irish audience goes into cringe mode incredibly quickly. And I saw, like, anytime somebody starts a new comedy show in Ireland, it's like a race. This happens in the UK to a certain extent as well. A race to Twitter to go, oh, this is awful. This is awful. I'm getting my defense in first. When they did Comic Relief this year, when Deirdre did Comic Relief, people found after the first whatever hour going, this is terrible. It's an awful person. Oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And then the normal people Fleabag sketch came on, and then Zig and Zag we formed and we had a 10-minute panel sketch, and people were like going, oh, okay, fine. You're going, could you all calm down on just judging quickly? So the idea was with the panel, we're just going to do this with people who so just relax. Ed, and me, and Colin, or who I don't know who. We picked people who said, right, this is just going to happen in a confident way. And it was much more assured. It was like, just right, we've done this now a while, and we were able to therefore be much more confident in what we do, like whatever. It's a weird game of confidence. Their confidence in you, your confidence in yourself, versus your innate sense that maybe you got something, but you have to earn a large part of the other confidence to actually go out and do it. And so it's a lot of it is a kind of a trick to make sure that people do that. And the panel was going, right, look, shut up. I'm not interested in this. I've done this. You've seen me do this. You've seen them do it. Just calm down. Just relax. Just sit back and relax. This is going to be fine. And we came in on that tone. Just relax.
It seemed to be as well. I mean, you look at what you've done since, and it seems to be a kind of, as I said, like, there was not so much event television, now there's event box sets or event streams.
Yeah.
Like back then, when there was even you could record, but nobody did, but like it was on at a certain point every week, and it was a thing that everyone sat around together. But also for you guys, there was also a sense of that confidence, of that kind of going, oh, okay, these guys aren't just the guys that go on in the comedy cellar and tell jokes. They can also front these kind of shows that, whereas they were comedic, but with some really interesting conversations that happened on that show.
It was possible to do it. Yeah, we had a lot of politicians on, we had a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of, taking the temperature of the nation. Nobody trusted with really, really serious stuff. But it was, but we had a lot of, and it was kind of around the time of the Charlie Haughey scandals and all that stuff was happening. And I remember having Mary work on and going, who has disappointed you most in Fianna? Like, I've seen Mary going, how am I going to get away with this? And I remember thinking, going, oh, well done, nicely. That worked out okay, like as a question. But it was, it was yeah, you got to chat serious things now and again, and then go silly. I mean, I would always remember it drifting into madness for a while, and people were bouncing these things across each other, and a voice in my ear going from the producer going, "Could you bring Samantha Mumber back into the conversation?" Because so there was, and because the thing was, even if you had a guest who, and that's not smart about the wages that was happening. We'd have, even if you have to have, the RTE guests you'd have, because there was, there's not that many people around to be interviewing. And also the Late Late was on, and Dunphy was on as well with his show, and there's Pat Kenny on Saturday, whatever. All the other shows were also getting these first dibs. So we'd have people on, but it didn't matter because you could have a weather person on, and then it ended up being jokes about whatever. Maxwell would go, I was hit by lightning once, whatever, to do whatever, and it would go off on a thing because there's 5 of us ready to be silly about the stuff. Like, so it was good. Again, if I look back on it, I'd probably find it was very loose, but it was interesting because you really got a sense of the personalities of who was there. The contrast with that would be with when I started Mock, which is around about the same time, or a couple of years later. I started doing Mock because I was still in London. I was flying over the panel, bluffing, knowing anything about the news. When I went to Mock was the British version, which is tight. We want this content, and then we'll bring it down. And it was very staccato and bursts of this, and it was obviously with Frankie and all that. So it actually, I don't think you got any sense of my personality at all for the first 4 years of Mock the Week, because it was just here, points and rounds, bang, 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 bang. Maybe I'll do a joke, bang, 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 who knows? But you couldn't do any kind of spiel or looseness or whatever at all. But it was quite weird to go between the two, to go between just this total, just loose kind of look. This is just, we're just being us thing, and we know you're coming to us to, we're not being us at all, where we're giving you the product, and so Mock was slick and polished and all that, and the panel was loose and stuff like that. But like, I mean, there are two quite different ways of doing it, and I think the panel's probably richer because you get more of a sense of who the people are. If you do a live stage show, you can't do 2 hours of bang, 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 bang. Just people go, Jesus. You have to let yourself be on stage. You have to let yourself be in the person they're seeing. And you have to just let the air out of it a bit every so often, like whatever. So it was an interesting thing to do. I think the panel remained a perfect fit for the kind of rambling nonsense I do, and the way the conversation style that Ireland enjoys. And I don't think it was ever kind of, I've always wanted to do it over here, but it's never worked out. And look, it's showbiz. You take the horse you get. But I've actually shifted what I could Mock into a more conversational way, so you can get more of that kind of looseness into it.
But that you say that, because of going from that kind of looseness, Irish, whatever, modus to kind of a career in the UK that kind of took off. Do you know what I mean? There was kind of, like Mock the Week over very quickly, kind of became a show, like another event show. And then, Dara O'Briain obviously is in another kind of space. But obviously I'd say, training is the wrong word, but for the work that you've got on to presenting kind of since, which might not be fully in the comedic domain.
Yeah.
I'd say that Mock the Week was a huge, training ground for that, for you to come in that.
It was, and it was its own kind of thing. I mean, it's a strange one. I'm sort of fond of the show, but there's been many years where I've gone, because I wasn't in it, because it gets a lot of grief. And there was a period where I literally, where they were doing one of the rounds, I sat with a piece of paper sketching out the next 3 years, going, well, if I left Mock, what could I do? And going, because about 3-4 years in, it was very much, the show was even skewed towards Frankie and Russell just banging at each other, and it was very difficult to get into any kind that I was enjoying. I found it like, well, look, if anything, I'm actually looking like I don't have anything to say here, so this is not helpful to me. So I actually sat down and I read, well, I've got that show, and then I've got a tour that year, so I'll be okay for 2 years anyway. The third year now is when I might begin to feel that, and put that down. That was 10 years ago. And then it sort of loosened up and it became much more enjoyable. The only thing is it's permanently permanently swirling in this commentary of it wasn't as good as it used to be, or it used to be really mean. Why was it so mean? You're going, God, it can't be both these things. It can't both have been a hideous misogynist thing, whatever, which is horrible, and also been its best time. I mean, whereas right now it's a very
commentary on itself, really. It's not the person saying it.
Yeah, well, look, everyone comes in with a certain thing. I get a lot of bile, for example, from former fans of Corbyn because we mentioned Corbyn. And the very act of mentioning Corbyn means that I apparently am a far right-wing comedian who's propping up the establishment. While at the same time, because we clearly were sort of anti-Brexit, you could definitely say that came through very strongly. The far right haters were being too left, and you're kind of going, and yet amidst all of that, the bits that really people remember are the silly things, the bits that extra right, this round will be about the Conservative doing this. It was the bits later on in the show where you come up with a stupid thing about the megabus man or the private browsing. There's a thing about private browsing which will go on forever, and those weird bits that just took off, they were clearly off the cuff moments, are actually what people who like to remember. But yet this swirling public discussion about, but panel shows are very sexist, or they're very this, or they're very that, like whatever. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of it are fair points, but it's a very different show now. People have a tendency to complain about the show as it was 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're kind of going, lads, honestly, we're doing a totally different show now to that one. So, yeah.
And Dara, as well as kind of, Mock the Week and the growing kind of, audience, and then the different show, there's been, and before you even talk about your touring, there's been an incredible amount of, really great television, and television which kind of straddled that space between the wild anarchic, comedy circuit and the establishment, or do you know what I mean? The kind of, Three Men in the Boat, like, so, that kind of stuff that had a last summer wine feel to it,
Yeah, I know, yeah.
BBC grew up with, and then yes, you're kind of playing and going down mad, ramshackly journeys in 10,000 seater auditorium. So I think, for you, that must be a really exciting space to be between, is it?
It was great. I mean, there's a point where I was doing because I was doing the science stuff. Obviously, it was a huge thing that came from nowhere. And if anything, would be the bit you'd go, look, that was tangibly very good. Not because of me, but I was at the front of a team that were really good at what they did. Like that BBC Science team were fantastic. So you had that going on. You had the travel stuff going on. You had The Apprentice for a few years, which actually just got a bit boring after a while, but it was a very silly, nice show to do. Like loads of stuff, like whatever, it's grand. There is certainly an element to which, like whatever, that was a hot time, and who knows if I'll ever get that level of where I had to contact the BBC schedule at one stage, going, I'm on 3 things this week. Could you just please not? Does your department know that this is also starting? And somebody had to go, oh yeah, that's a bit much, isn't it? Yeah, it is a bit much. Can we just move that back? That may never happen again. That is somebody else's turn to have all that kind of stuff right now, like whatever. But I got to do things. I got to do ridiculous things. You don't. And I'm way more philosophical about this than people presume, particularly people who are dying to go, you're over. You get a chance, you get a window, and in that window you can do as much as you can. Please God, you get the best out. Sometimes you just get a window and you try to do as much as possible, and you build your audience, and that holds through, like whatever. Because I'm occasionally go, fuck me, I'm 48. This is madness that I'm still. If I was in a band, if I'd chosen music as a thing, I'd now be reminiscing on the comeback tours. They'd even be finished. That's how savage that industry is in terms of youth and stuff like that. But comedy, you can keep it going for a long time, like whatever, and do loads of different things because, the training, the pizza restaurants, the thing that you can put me into a thing on a live show with 2 astronauts, and we'll keep it going despite the fact that, there was one point during a Stargazing Live where there was an eclipse. And Brian is great. Brian's really good at what he does, actually. And I was only ever on that show because the feeling was Brian's never done live television. We better have somebody in who's a broadcaster who can be the person to pick up the slack at this point. And Brian turns out he's perfectly good at doing it, like whatever. But it's great. I'm there for the ride. It's fantastic fun. But there was a point during we covered an eclipse, and it was like an 90% eclipse in the UK or 95%. But there was a plane getting the actual moment of eclipse, and it was over the Faroe Islands. And I've since spoken to the cameraman about this. If you imagine a plane up here, relay station on the Faroe Islands, and the thing is over here. So you've got to move the plane with the camera pointing in the same direction. So for the longest possible sweeps, you go past the relay station before it disappears off the point, right? Because at that point you have to turn the plane around and he's going to run to the other side of the thing. So that can't happen during the moment. We need to get one shot of this thing. So the guy has to pick the perfect time to bring the plane around, to turn the plane, to get get the full 5-minute gold, and then he can turn around, like whatever. So this all is happening. But when he does this bit, which is 5 minutes before the eclipse starts, he's just a little bit further away from the relay station, and we lose the picture. And me and Brian are standing with 80 school children in Jodrell Bank at 11 o'clock in the morning with the Director General, whatever he's called, whatever the job is, head of the BBC, smiling, beaming, feeling proud of what the BBC is achieving. When we get told, we've lost all the pictures, we've lost everything. And we have 18 minutes of airtime to fill, including an eclipse we'll have to describe. And we're going, okay. And so we start spooling things. And luckily, the thing kicks in again, and then we get this incredible thing, and then we can just show replays of it and talk about it. But there were moments of, you don't know how close we came to it just being me and Brian interviewing children, going, are you enjoying this? Is it exciting for you? But yeah.
Is that not the most terrifying thing in the world?
It was particularly because this was such a moment. Yeah. It was such a thing, and all we could do is maybe go back. Let's go back to Cornwall and see this again, like, and see how it looks there. Let's see how it looks, because we've lost the actual thing that's happening. And we know it's recorded. We can show it to you later. We'll do it on the show. We'll show it to you. But oh God, how can we? So what can we expect, Brian? Again, tell us yet again what we can expect from this when we see it. Like whatever. God knows what would have happened. There was we had when Tim Peake went up onto the International Space Station, we had a very quiet 2-minute meeting with someone from the BBC going, if something bad happens, you have to just go. And they'd given us a line to say. We had to go, we're going to have to hand over to BBC News now. There was some line that we had to be ready to say. And it was some guy from the One Show said, I was talking to him because they did live stuff, and he said, oh yeah, look, you don't want to be on air for this. You do not want to be the person, speculating on air about what might have happened, because he said he used to be a gymnastics commentator, and somebody broke their neck in a fall while they were covering it, and he was left on air having to, well, this is a very serious situation, and now the doctors have come out, like whatever, and trying to say so but not say anything. And he said, look, you need to be able to just go. And so that was all sitting in the back of our heads. As it turns out, all we had was that it was slightly delayed in the docking, and we had to delay Celebrity MasterChef. And there were 43 complaints because we delayed Celebrity MasterChef to show Tim Peake, the first British man on the International Space Station. We showed that as 15 minutes. And somebody set up a Twitter poll saying, would you prefer to see it? Yes, see, and sent it to me going, people want to see Celebrity MasterChef, not your stupid space thing. So.
Wow. But come here, I mean, the space thing, is incredible. And I think, you obviously, you've written books, now, from around that time.
Yeah.
But I suppose, I mean, I can imagine when anyone's in their life or in their career, kind of things just happen, and you find yourself in bizarre situations. But imagine, even in the situation that you find yourself in, regularly, I'd imagine meeting the likes of Stephen Hawking and that.
Yeah.
There must be moments in your life where you kind of go, oh God, okay.
Yeah. Totally, absolutely. Where you go, why is this? And it was kind of funny, because I'm sure some people's desire to get into a media career is because, hey, if I do this, I might meet models. Hey, if I do this, I might get to hang out with footballers. And I was there going, I could be scientists. This could be really interesting as a thing to do. There were weird things, the moments where you go, oh, this is ridiculous, like whatever. And there's also a brief moment where I would do. There was a period where Parkinson was on. I did Parkinson about 3 times, or I did these things. And Samuel Jackson, there's footage of Samuel Jackson laughing at a joke I told. And so there's a photograph somewhere of me standing next to Samuel Jackson, just looking very happy with myself. There was a lot of, and I will take this criticism on the chin, me looking happy with myself. There's a, that's a, I'm happy to accept that people, there are people who really dislike me for whatever reason. That just comes with the territory. But if the fact that I'm looking delighted because I'm standing next to, like a Peter Higgs who discovered the Higgs particle, then all right, fair enough. Screw you. Like, I'm a nerd. This is a thing. Yeah, I'm going to take that on board.
I won't keep you much longer, but I'm just interested
No worries.
in your book back in 2009, the Tickling the English. Like, did you,
Oh yeah.
Because obviously, you have made a seamless transition, and one of the few that have brilliantly straddled both islands in relation to being, and by being who you are, rather than any attempt to
right, okay.
do either. I think that really stands to you. But do you find that has kind of, through your work with your touring, because obviously you've toured, I say bizarrely, everywhere in the world at this point.
It's become a thing, yeah, where it's going.
Like, as much as, people thinking that you're from Cork, do people kind of get you mixed up completely around the world, or is Irishness something that kind of sticks to you, or what?
It's interesting. The Irishness has been. It's always kind of been like it's been an identifier, but it's also become a very useful thing to have had lived in a second country. I think is a very handy thing to have seen our mistakes in Ireland and our achievements, and also their mistakes and their achievements, and be able to contrast or whatever has a good sense of perspective. I think it works for both Ireland. Just to be outside the country and go, oh yeah, you don't have to do it this way. Oh, that's useful to know. And there is a certain sense there. For example, I kind of feel that I think I don't know if it's historically a reason why empires fall or whatever, but you can see, for example, in America was America is incredibly enclosed, and so when something ridiculous like the thing happens, they have no experience of looking outside their own borders for anything, and so they have developed just these weird solo versions of doing the way they do their health system, the way they do their education system, the way they do pick new players for their sports teams. There are all these really weird, some great ideas, some not so great ideas. They're American things, and like God fear, they would go, oh, by the way, you don't have to do it this way. You can it's like, no, this unshakable sense of this is how it happens, like whatever. And those ideas harden. I think it's been useful to be from another place. To know that your thinking doesn't get hardened. Well, this is the way we've always done it. Because no, you have to change it every so often, and that's a handy thing to have. But it's the Irishness specifically. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I have that Gaelic and stuff like that. There is a thing that a small one-man campaign to remind Britain that Ireland is foreign and different and not the same and not just an enclave. And I think we may even do a documentary, one of these kind of travel documentaries, in which the express point is to go, no, we're like, we have another language. We have different radio, we have different television, we have different ads, we have different sports, we have different music. We have this whole other thing that when we come over to you, are able to pretend we know all about your stuff, but actually we had our own stuff all this time. Like it's weird. Comedy is a strange version as well, because comedy there's a home gig. Every comedian has their home thing that an audience they can speak to really easily. And mine you'd say would be Dublin, and then for a while it became kind of Glasgow and Belfast. That because of the straddling the Anglo and Irish and thing, like whatever. It never became the area outside the M25, like the suburbs of England, like whatever. But when I do, because I do tours, where I'll go to Scandinavia, has been for the last few tours, and laterally we did America just for the lockdown, and we're currently doing the Canadian tour the minute lockdown ends, and Auckland or Dubai or Russia, these different places, and people say, God, you must tailor the show enormously. And weirdly, the show being washed between the UK and Ireland for the first year and a half of its existence is enough to take any indulgence or local references out. I mean, obviously I'll put it, if I'm back in Dublin, I'll make some jokes about being things that, that only I in Dublin will understand. It was kind of like a lovely private joke, and that's a nice thing to have. But the actual show, the core show itself, it's Britain and Ireland are sufficiently different for me to go for that filters out any, and the minute that works between Britain and Ireland, it'll work anywhere. It's become universal enough, or become general enough, and in a good way, that you've taken away any crutches of going, hey, people from Kent walk like this, people from Yorkshire walk like this. You got rid of all of that stuff. And what's it with Mayo people? That stuff just gets washed out because it doesn't travel that small distance. And once that's done, that's enough. Then you can take it anywhere. And the audience will hopefully come with you because you've made it sufficiently universal. So it's been really useful to be from the two different places, but also it's been really nice to have that. Look, the Irish thing is will always remain like, and I'm over sufficiently regularly. But I do lament, and I've said this on stage, I do lament the fact that, I can feel the country slightly moving away from me, because I'm not there. I'm not there on the day to day. So in the time I've been gone, whole careers have risen and fell and stories have come and been big things, whatever, and I'm sort of bluffing a bit. I remember there's a point where I realized I had to stop doing the panel was when Tom Dunn was on, and Tom Dunn was doing an impersonation of Penny Apples, the guy who ran the garage, and then Bill Cullen. Bill Cullen. And he was going, and look, for all I remember, he might have been going, I'm Bill Cullen. I speak. Whatever. Who knows what the voice was? I don't know Bill Cullen at all. And so he's doing Bill Cullen, and everyone in the panel is laughing, and I'm going, ha 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 ha. And like that was the point where I went, no, I'm not around. You got to step out of here, like whatever. So it's weird. You sort of lose an intimate connection with the place, which is a great thing as a comic to just have just that inflection point, and you can see when John Bishop plays Liverpool, when Peter Kay plays Manchester, whatever, when Michael Macklin plays the southern part of there is just people have a home thing, and your home base is a big thing just for that.
Do you hold the record for do you still hold the record for Vicar Street?
No, I do not. It is. I've got 197 sold out days in Vicar Street, and that is not the record because Tommy Tiernan exists, and Tommy continues to exist. And not until Tommy is dead will I have the opportunity to shift that. And I think he's like a tour and a half ahead of me now, because I'd imagine the days where we could casually think of doing 40 to 50. Look, that may be gone. There's loads of new comics out. So I'm under no illusions that it may be a case of we'll do slightly fewer. The days where that generation was dominating sales, we've had our moment in the sun. At some point I'm going to start doing all these interviews they were great days, weren't they? But those days have gone now, and because that's showbiz, man. And it's so we may have I'll definitely get over the 200 anyway. But please God, I can sell it 3 more dates in Vicar Street next time. But it is Tommy will always have that. It's grand.
Dara, and just again on the touring piece and the writing piece, like I'm fascinated with the way shows evolve for you. I mean, because your shows are brilliant in their, I mean, obviously there's a technical kind of journey through them, but they're also in their fluidity and in your responses and even your tweets after the shows.
Oh yeah. You had to be there. Yeah.
Like, how do you write? I mean, is the writing process a long process for you?
It's 3 to 6 months of throwing ideas at a board, throw ideas at the board for the first couple of months, then start doing small gigs with a piece of paper, and then you devise up the routines, and you find like a 25-minute version of the show, or a 25-minute routine of the best stuff, and then you do it over and over and over again. It sort of grows, and you bring in other bits and pieces. But a 2-hour show, a good 2-hour show would need 6 good ideas, let's say, because each idea should be 10, 15 minutes of a thing. Once you've done it a few times and you go, well, I could go here with this and I could here, I could add this bit in, add that bit in, like whatever. So even though I've kind of made a reputation and made a strength of the off the cuff stuff, honestly, it's the routines which I get most joy. It's great fun to do the messing around with, like whatever, but I like a nicely constructed starts here, peak, huge peak, end routine is really satisfying to have. Like, it's really satisfying to have all the steps in it, all the information that you reveal a little bit in order to get them. They can move slightly ahead of you. Then you can sidestep it and do something different or whatever. All that stuff, all that tweaking and creating is a bit of a joy. I'm about to go into doing that now for another show, for the next one, because I was in sense relatively lucky when the COVID thing happened. I kind of at the end of a tour, and so my heart goes out to anyone who was ready to just was about to step on stage, and is out for a year, let's say. But the I'll start that process again, but it's very, very loose. And the bit that's the most tangible sense I can express is when you're writing the new one, all you can think of is how great the old one was, and hey, didn't that just happen? Didn't that just happen? And like to the point, my wife was like, if I hear you make this complaint one more time, every time you start a new show, you go, oh, but the last show, it was all, and I had that thing, remember that thing where that was so perfect. And then I had the finale with that was so lovely. And she could, all of that came out, that you had to get all that, but the last show just is like this perfect because you've done it 180 times. So it's all the water's smoothed out, all the things, it's flowed, it's evolved into its great form. You've done it so often that you know what bits work and what bits to drop and all that. And now you're a piece of paper, I'm going to try this out. But you have to relive the life cycle again. You go back to doing small gigs, you try out stuff, they don't like it, you bin it, you come back the next week with more new stuff, and you do that and then you let them grow and grow and grow, whatever. But
nice for you though as well that you kind of, I'm sure nice that you're not in the mood, or nice that you're kind of, shit going on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Big hurt. If you're in a play, at least you have a kind of, there's an artifice around you to kind of disappear in. But like it was Dara O'Briain kind of, after having a shit week, having to play 10,000 people, that's a jump.
It is. Now, by the way, never got 10,000. Let's say 2 maybe. It's grand. Good. A lovely at the level, that's grand. But I never did the arena thing. Was never got to it, and even the place where you could have, like Dublin, never wanted to do. And then played 2 charity gigs recently in the 3 Arena for whatever. Deirdre Kane organised these things, and John Bishop. We went out and went, oh, actually, that's really nice. That's really nice. I should have done that. Should have done that. But the secret agenda by the way of doing all these Vicar Streets was just to have a load of weekends in Dublin, and so I continually catching up with old friends in Dublin. So I am surprisingly ubiquitous in their lives. It's nice to. Sorry, I honestly may have decided there is still a show there. And I think that people think it's all loose and chatty or whatever. There's in 110 minutes of something, 90 of it will happen no matter what. And then 20 is in a structured, loose way. And that just keeps it fresh for you because you have to go into the audience every day. But even at this stage, 25 years, and I'm getting a bit bored of what you do for a living, and I may need another question. I got very bored of where you're from and wrote a routine to kill where you're from, and I may need to write a routine to kill what you do for a living because I'm getting bored of that, whatever. And the question is, the most interesting question is often the 1-2 questions after that anyway. And so the stuff that makes it really, but the only thing is you don't know where the gold is. There's there's gold in all these things, but you need to keep asking questions, unfortunately, until you find the thing that just makes it take off. I was thinking about that this morning. And the impossibility of even explaining this. The last vicar, just as a tantalizing sense of the last vicar, had a bus driver who was off on, workers' comp sickness, whatever, and had been off for 3 months at this stage. How I found this out, I'm not sure what the questions were. What do you do? I'm a bus driver, but not at the moment. Oh, why not? Whatever. Whatever. And I said, how long have you been off? Whatever. And he said, I've been off 3 months. And I said, sure, look, you're a bus driver. You're doing the same thing you're doing right now. You're just sitting there. And his family started laughing in this huge way. And I realized, they've been taking the piss out of him about this as well. So I'm free to do this, whatever. And it came all about, there's a pregnant woman, whatever, in the row. And I said, look at her, she's having a baby. She'll be back at work quicker than you will. Family all start roaring, laughing again. And he did some bus that actually went from Blanchardstown to somewhere else, whatever. And we're talking about, just old women with shopping going, well, I'll give it another month. Maybe he'll turn up and waiting. And it was great fun to do. And then I went on with the show. You go on with the show, but he's in the back of my head, whatever. And at the end, because it's the last gig, I said, look, this is the last one. And I just want to say a very heartfelt thank you to the people in Vicar Street. Thank you to the staff. They're in the audience. All clap, all these people, so nice. And look, it's been a wonderful thing. But I really want to dedicate this show to the people of, and I don't know what small town in North County Dublin that, let's say, and I listed off all these towns in Dublin, Blanana and Blanana and Staveley Road and blah 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 and all, and the guys are going, who are these people? And I and his family are laughing. No one else has got it yet with his family, because I've just learned off 7 stops on the 19A to Drimna, and I'm going, and the brave people who have for the last 3 months been denied a bus service. Then the audience get it, like, and like it's the pulling it back in an hour later. And it's a fucking trick, Mark. It's a complete trick. During the break, I'm working this stuff out. Yeah. But like an hour later, it's just something about this, just the right amount of time between we heard about this and now it's back again. Oh my God. And then it's a huge laugh because but it's such a trick. Yeah. Such a handy thing. And they boom, big laugh. Thank you very much. Good night. It's a total. I essentially stole it from big musicals. The other way that you go to a musical and they'll sing the most popular song at the end. The whole cast will come out and sing, whatever. And I nicked it from that. And I get a rising round of applause for everything. Thank you very much. Good night. It's total cynicism. But it's just, it ends an ending, like whatever. And occasionally I watch legendary American stand-ups, like whatever. They say, like, doing their specials, like whatever. And they just kind of talk for an hour and then they stop. And they go, thank you, goodbye. And they walk off, like whatever. And they get a big round of applause. They walk off and you're going, where's the finale? Where's the big ending? For God's sake, come on! Where's the wrap up with the whole thing wove back in together and there's a big callback? Like I did America this year for the first time ever. Did a proper show and it's in theaters there, like whatever. And there's a couple of comics. I go, Jesus, what was that? That's how we do shows. That's how we do a big finale, like. And when the whole thing comes together, we're like, no, we don't do that at all, like whatever. So yeah, you have to give the audience something.
Well, come here, talk about giving people something. How do you cope with your presence on social, Dara?
It's weird. It's become less pleasant than it used to be. It's weird. It was great for a while because you could get the word out about stuff and the people liked you, followed you, and then it became a place where people would be really mean. And about 6-7 years. And what happened sadly was you saw Twitter specifically, being bled of all the gentle, nice people who were, found an outlet there, and then suddenly it was just all elbows and stuff. And so it's, if you're somebody who works the clubs, it's okay, but it's even then you're kind of going. So I mute a lot now, but as I said, like I get the I get either the left wing saying one thing or the right wing saying a thing, and they're all like, "Oh God, that's." And at some point, I'm going to try to find a way to join them together, so I can look. You both hate Mock. You both hate me for some reason. You'd really get on. You guys should talk like you'd really enjoy each other's company. But the flip side is occasionally you'll do a silly thing, and it'll be lovely. And then it'll be a nice moment. And, I sent a tweet out during the summer about, because when the football started in Germany, and I sent a tweet going, oh God, loads of people are now suddenly watching German football, who've never followed in sight. In the hipster tone, the tone is difficult to get across, but I thought I made it really obvious, like whatever. Personally, I've been watching the Bundesliga for years, and I'm a huge fan of Morten Harket FC, or Bayern Morten Harket, Bayern Morten Harket. And I wrote, and I thought it got increasingly silly as the tweet went on, so increasingly obvious what the joke was, that I was mocking this thing, and I got hundreds of people going, yeah, it's not for you to decide what people like. And I would write, it's a joke, read it again. And like, I literally must have 80, it's a joke, read it again, which are followed by, oh, sorry, I didn't read it properly. Oh, sorry, I didn't read it properly. Oh, sorry. People are just so quick to go, how dare you tell me? And I go, Bayern Morten Harket, read it again. But then in the midst of, some people really got into the gag, and one guy in particular who later said, look, I was having I was on lockdown, I was going a bit mad, I just really got into this silly idea of Bayern Morten Harket, and he designed a jersey and he sent me the shirt. He's got a logo, and underneath it has a Bayern Morten Harket written across it, and then I designed some sort of logo, and then in German, I think it's buchstäblich ein Weins, but I think I have that wrong. But it was in German, buchstäblich ein Weins, without it, which when you type it into Google Translate means literally a joke. So he made a jersey with literally a joke in German for this football team that, God love it. When I'm playing five-a-side all the time, I'm sure I'll wear that jersey. That'll be my hipster jersey that I wear. So there's a ton of creative stuff out there, but it's just, it gets shouted out a lot.
Yeah. My sons wouldn't let me not ask you about gaming and whether you actually are into gaming or whether it's...
I fake it. I'm into it, but I get a very little chance to do it. Currently, slowly working my way through The Last of Us 2, which has been helped by the kids going back to school. So literally one of the days I dropped them off and went and had a couple of hours and discovered a new type of zombie. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, I was way more into it a while ago, but I was still residual. Like, I mean, I have retro machines and thing. I was never good at it. That's an interest. You know, I think my life is dotted by things that I have an interest in but aren't good at. And I was actually never good at games. I was always a bit rubbish at them, but I quite liked them.
So you must have enjoyed presenting kind of the game.
That was the We Did the Game. It was great fun to do. It was one of those shows, unfortunately, that they moved it to a different studio and the producers took it in a different direction and the energy went out, which occasionally happens in TV shows. So the first series is great, amazing. We thought this could run and run and run forever, and then for some reason, for literally 4 reasons that I could express, the energy went out of the thing. We kind of lost it. It was a pity because it was a really silly, fun thing to do. Like and the legacy of which is I have a retro machine with these big cabinets, which has all the games on it, all the old games on it, and occasionally, in fact, I might do it now. You have a quick game of something. We had this on the show, it was called Go 8-Bit, and we had these kind of 8-bit versions of the presenters and the guests done out. And I got the guy who did them, I sent him pictures of the family and said, listen, can you do 8-bit versions as a family? So on the band across the thing, I've got the 3 kids, my wife and myself, in 8-bit. And they really good, really, like you can see, like my daughter does a closed mouth smile. She's doing that, like whatever. The littlest lad is there's a guy, short blonde hair, there's a guy with like they look just perfect rendered in 8-bit, and that's there. And honestly, no one has ever marked on or noticed it, but it's a lovely thing. So yeah, no, I do. I don't know what they're playing, whatever, but and I won't see them on Fortnite because they'll kill me too easily. But I know my way around it a bit.
Come here, Dara. I'm going to avoid the whole conversation about Arsenal because I don't want to get in football. But I'm sure you must be having prayers, and holy water being sprinkled on, stadiums to try and get the ball rolling for Arsenal again.
We're currently what we're doing is there's a WhatsApp group, which is because they're going to allow some people back into the stadium. There's a WhatsApp group trying to currently work out whether we should group together in a block or go individually, and how to game the algorithm so we can get as many tickets as possible. And whether or not, if we group together, will they just bring the group, or will they bring people so if you group with people, will you only see them or will you never see them? We don't know. We can't know from working it out how it's going to operate, but we think there'd be some chance of getting people back into the room. But look, everyone's so on tenterhooks about this stuff. The other idea is this is the first August / December, which I haven't been over for the hurling final in years, and that's December the 13th. That's all starting up again. So I will, but again, I think it's going to be it'll be a reduced number if there's anyone in at all. But I even brought the kids actually there's a semi-final weekend of the hurling, and it was a classic. But 2 years ago, the year Limerick won, and there were 2 spectacular semi-finals that went to extra time, and it was amazing. And so they both got a great outing and thing. And my daughter, among her observations, was, I heard the word fuck 49 times, 3 of them from you. And I said, well, yeah, look, it was a very exciting game, but there's a man in front of her who was just constantly, fucking car, come on, fuck. And so she got a sharp kind of, well, okay, look, I'm sorry if we shielded you from that for a while, but that's the reality of it.
You didn't bring the county jersey from the Wicklow?
I didn't. I have a T-shirt that says I would have made minor, but I was injured and I wore that. So it's a final last year. But no, I don't still have that county jersey, and I feel it wouldn't fit very well. So no, I, as a rule, don't wear replica jerseys. Out of respect, yeah.
Listen, thanks so much for doing this, and I hope you write a cracking new show and survive the rest of them.
Look, I've been given the chance. The one thing we do know is you can't write about lockdown because it is the last thing anyone will want to hear about. And that's been an interesting moment. So we've all got to remember what normal life is like to go back into the general stuff, like whatever. So it's nice to be back in the position of doing this. It was just such a weird thing. And also, the quicker we get back, Christ knows, you know better than anyone. We're involved in various campaigns here just to raise money for people the normal theatre staff.
Yeah,
it's various.
That's it, and it's kind of there's an awful lot of supports, and rightly so, going into artists and makers, but it's the people behind.
Oh yeah, Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I've watched when I went down from whatever my income was to like literally 5% of the income for the thing. But I'm okay. I've saved. I've done tours, whatever. It's grand. It's the tech staff, it's the box office staff, it's the thing. And anytime you see one of us talk about this, obviously that's who we're doing it for, because that's ludicrous. We, as I said, are the extremophiles. We're the cockroaches. I've done a drive-in gig. I've done socially distanced gig. We will find a way of doing a gig. But that doesn't mean that the person who does the microphone or the person who runs a box office, in various regional theatres across the UK and Ireland, the benchmark I have is I had a Canadian tour that was supposed to start on the 17th of March or the 15th of March or something. And that obviously got bumped to October and has now been bumped to next September. And you kind of go, fuck, a year and a half? These people are going to be a survive a year and a half. So to yourselves, obviously, this is, good luck with that. Yeah, that's the thing.
Well, look,
we'll be fine. We'll be fine, Mark. We'll always be fine. We'll still be there.
I think there's a cockroach element to us all, Dara, to be honest with you.
Look, we adapt fiercely. We're genetic mutants. And it's fine. And look, I've wrapped it around again. In the worst of situations, post-nuclear, post-anything, when there's a giant flood, people will be clinging to a raft, and you'll hear dunk, dunk, dunk. Hey, it's very wet out here. We'll always be there because our need for love of strangers will surmount the worst disaster.
Dara, thanks so much for taking part in this, and I look forward to seeing you on stage again soon. All right.
Come on, look forward to being there. Good stuff.